Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this new session. Just I will give you a brief of this series of expert talks. As already mentioned in the last session, we started this journey in the last year, September, and we are trying to invite all different categories like experts from academia and industry experts. Also, we are trying to invite for different talks in this chapter. Our objective is what to bridge the gap between industry and academia, and we are trying to have a small groups for small projects kind of thing. And we already started. A few people also benefited out of that, and not only for student members, for professional members also, we are trying to engage with the different activities. As a part, again, we are planning to have a two-day session in the month of February 2022. We are trying to have one professional meet for all professional members in this zone. So this is about the activities what we are doing in Vizag Bay. And now the talk by the expert, Dr. Ravikiran Verma garu, is a part of this section, Computer Society, and he is my team also. We, as a team, we are planning so many activities to conduct in this zone, and the chapter should be very vibrant to have all the activities. I really welcoming you, sir, for your talk and all. I request Bhuvneshwari to introduce guest today, and then we'll start the talk.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, one and all. I, Miss M.V. Bhuvaneshwari, volunteer of IEEE Computer Society, Vizag. Take the privilege to introduce to Sir and HOD of CSE Department, MEGR College of Engineering, Vijayanagaram, for the expert lecture on talk. Dr. Ravikiran Verma is currently working as over 21 years of experience, including 1 year at L&T.
There are no proper signals. Your voice is breaking down.
Sir, is it audible, sir? No.
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Ravikiran Verma is currently working as professor and HOD CSC, MEGR College of Engineering. He has over 21 years. Was awarded PhD from JNTU Kakinada, MTech from SRM University, and BE from Mysore University. He is a senior member of IEEE and ACM. Dr. Verma is an active researcher, published 32 papers in international elsewhere, Springer, ET, IGI Global, IndusScience, etc. He is an accredited instructor of Cisco, Amazon AWS, Blue Prism, and Palo Alto. He has received Global Instructor Excellence Award from Cisco 3 times. He has published 2 Indian patents. His research areas of interest are cybersecurity, machine learning, swarm intelligence. I welcome you, sir. Please take over the session.
Thank you very much, ma'am. So first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Satish sir, our IEEE Computer Science Chair, Vizag Bay, for giving me this opportunity. So he is really working hard, very hard since the beginning of the year, and conducted many events, lot of events. So, and I wish all the students like to utilize these kind of opportunities. You can go through the IEEE calendar, you can see the events, and if you like any of the, if you are any of the topic is excited, if you feel excited for any of the topics, you can join, listen to lectures. Most lectures are free actually, like you can utilize the technical talks that are offered by IEEE. Particularly in even IEEE Computer Society, for which Satish sir is the head of Vizag Bay section. So thank you very much, Satish sir.
Yes, sir.
So let us start today's topic. Share the screen. Class అవుతుంది. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So you know that cyber security or network security is a very essential part of today's technology, and it's really important that the students as well as professional members, if any, in this class, to have some understanding, or I would like to share my research experience. See, after all, we do PhD to gain some knowledge in a particular topic, in-depth knowledge of a particular topic, and if we don't share with other people, and what is the good or what is the benefit of doing the PhD? So I thought I would like to share the research work I have already done and I am doing in the area of cyber security. So today we shall see about very interesting topic on how firewalls work, particularly packet filter firewalls, and how we can apply some swarm intelligence and soft computing techniques, swarm intelligence techniques like, for example, ant colony optimization. These kind of optimization techniques, can they be applied in the betterment or performance improvement of a firewall? So I would like to give introduction. So a quick introduction to network perimeter. So we are talking about network perimeter security. When we talk about security, so there are different devices which participate or which are used in providing network security. See, a simple pictorial representation of protecting your perimeter. Let us say these are the systems, a server, and you can imagine any big network in this place. So we have multiple security devices. We connect to the internet through border routers or edge routers. So in the router itself, we can implement many security mechanism. Security services can be provided in the router, including firewalls and many other security mechanisms can be provided in the router as well. And beyond that, actually, there is a full-fledged firewall, which can be a hardware or a software, which actually filters both incoming and outgoing packets. And apart from that, we also have IDS, intrusion detection system, which will generate alerts when some network attacks happen in our network. See, there are multiple layers of security. No one device can provide full security. So in the host, you can have host-based firewalls, host-based IDS. A network level, there can be a network level IDS and a network level firewall. And of course, you must have an anti-malware system which takes care of different types of other malwares like virus, worms, trojans, etc. So there are multiple layers of security that must be provided to protect our network. So today I will discuss about what is a firewall, and in particular a packet filter firewall. What is the purpose of a firewall, and how firewall rules are written, and are there any issues when somebody writes a firewall rule? Can we assume that everything is perfectly working, or are there any issues in when we are writing those firewall rules? So obviously, when we write some rules, we may do some mistakes. Those mistakes should not be catastrophic. Those mistakes must not create any cost damage to the network. So it requires some algorithms to be developed to identify those mistakes. So we shall see those interesting topics today. So if you are interested, those who are interested to see more about my work, you can refer this paper called Ant Colony Optimization Based Firewall Anomaly Mitigation Engine, which is published 2016 in Springer Press Journal, say Impact Factor Journal. So to understand our network, I will just show you an example topology that is taken in this study. So you can see we have different corporate office or branch office. We are connected. We have customers. Our customers are connected from the internet. We have employees who are working from home. And in our network, in our campus, we have different networks and we have different servers. All these machines are connected. Generally servers are protected by a DMZ. And we have a firewall which is placed at the perimeter. So what is the purpose of a firewall? Anybody can tell? Can anybody tell what is the purpose of a firewall? Why do we use firewalls in computer networks? So I don't know whether you are given permission to unmute yourself, but it's okay. So firewalls are security devices which can be used to filter traffics, to allow or deny certain IP addresses based on certain IP addresses and port numbers. Suppose I feel that this system is trusted. Hope you can see the mouse. So this system is trusted 192.168.5.64. I would like to permit traffic from that system. Suppose there is some black sheep, some untrusted attacker, or some IPs which are blacklisted. I know some information about that. They must not be accepted, or the traffic must not be allowed to my network. Let us say this 172.19.64.224 as an example. So this is an untrusted network. Here I am only discussing about all private IP addresses. In fact, they can be public IP addresses also, because I cannot put any public IP addresses in my demonstration or presentation or on the paper. So here we have used only private IPs, but there may be public IPs also. So for example, there is a public IP, just for an example, like it is untrusted, I want to block it. So I don't want to allow that. So you can do it on a firewall by writing some rules. So then you may ask a question, sir, who says this? Who says to allow? Who says to deny? Is there any policy? Who gives the policy? Who gives the directions for a network engineer or the security engineer to configure the firewall rules? So for that, we have a policy, security policy. So security policy is a high-level document which is given by the high-level management. For example, it may look like this. So in English, like words, that's all. It may say full access can be given to the organization's telnet server for the organization administrator's home IP address from home IP address. Suppose I want to allow 10 dot, what is the IP address? 10.44.128.112. You see here, maybe somewhere. Yeah, this is a trusted IP. So I want to allow this person, this laptop, to access through public internet. Ultimately, it comes through the firewall only. So if I permit in the firewall, then only he is allowed. Otherwise, he cannot be allowed. So I can restrict any particular source in the firewall. So I want this IP to give access to FTP server. So this FTP server. So that is the policy. So like that, in the policy, some do's and don'ts or allows and denies will be defined. So this department can access this department, this source can access this source. So these kind of English like statements generally is the policy, but this policy is not enough to write the rules. This policy must be converted to a set of rules. So without going to the code or the program which is used to write these rules, so we can show rules in a simple table form. So for example, you can see here, these are the rules, packet filter rules that will be there in a firewall. So for example, the rule 1 says protocol can be anything. If the source IP is this, source port can be anything. But if the packets are coming to destination 10.12.32.21 and 22, and if the destination port is 1 to 80, then allow. So this is the meaning. So in the firewall rule, there will be protocol, source IP, source port, destination IP, destination port, and an action will be there. Whether if the incoming packet matches with this rule, what action has to be taken, allow or deny. If the incoming packet do not match with the first rule, then it will the firewall will check the second rule. If does not match, it will check the third rule. And wherever a match occurs, if the incoming packet is from 5.64 and to 32.23 and the destination port is 23, if everything matches, then the action in that rule will be applied. Understood how firewall will process the incoming packets? So if any previous rule is not matched, then it will check all the rules in the serial order, sequential order only. And suppose if there is a packet from 48 which matches the rule number 5, and that packet will be denied. And what if none of the rules in the table matches? Then it will be default denied. Obviously, it will be denied. So these are the rules, and you may think it's a small list. Actually, in fact, in real firewalls, rule may be much bigger. It depends on the organization size. So there may be multiple rules. Then you ask a question, who has written this table or who has configured these rules? So administrators, firewall engineers or firewall security engineers or security admins. There are many names within security experts. So they have written these rules. So is there any problem with these rules? So see, when I write something by mistake, I have written deny instead of allow, or there are some conflicts because we are manually writing these rules. That is must. We must write the rules manually based on the policy. And tomorrow, if policy changes, again we need to edit these rules. So when we are manually entering these rules, of course, because of human mistakes, there may be chance that some anomalies occur in these rules. So let us see what are the different types of anomalies and what problems they create.
Sir, any problem, sir? Sir, any problem, sir? No, please try, sir. అయ్యో! నా తప్పేం లేదు ఆ రోజు అక్కడ. సార్ 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 రీజాయిన్ అవుతారా సార్? సార్ ఒకసారి రీజాయిన్ అవుతారా సార్? Yes, sir. Now we are able to hear you. Sir, everyone, sir. Hello. Sir, now I'm making you as a host, sir. You can, I think you can do it. So check, sir.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, actually there's some mic problem.
Clear, sir.
I did not realize that there is an issue. I thought I am audible and I am keep on going on with the talk. I never realized that there is an issue.
No issue, sir. You can carry on. And share your screen.
So can anybody tell at what stage I have, up to what point you have heard earlier?
Till that diagram was there, sir. Go to previous slide, sir. Not this. Previous one, sir. Previous one, sir. Previous.
At what point
Slide number 18, sir.
mic has disconnected?
Slide number 18, sir.
18, huh?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
up to here you can hear. You have heard.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
So did you hear about the anomalies, shadowing, generalization,
Yes, sir.
correlation, and
Yes, yes.
redundancy?
Yes. Yes, yes.
Okay. So then slide number 18. Okay.
Yes, yes, sir. Yeah.
So the next step. So we know that there are these anomalies are there in the rules. So these are the rules and these are the anomalies. Now, how to identify this technically, or what logic we need to apply to identify these anomalies? So we need to segment the rules according to their packet spaces. So for example, rule 1, this is the packet space. This is the entire packet space, you can say. So rule number 1, the packet space is this. Rule number 2, the packet space is this. So what do you mean by this? See, rule 2 is going on with rule 1 also. So there is an overlap. Rule 2 has an overlap with R4. There is a rule 2 has an overlap with R1. So overlapping is not a big issue, but if you see rule R9, R7, there is an overlap and also there is a conflict. What is a conflict? R9 says deny and R7 space allow. So there is a conflict in the same packet space. This should not happen. So first we need to identify the segments and overlapped, non-overlapped segments, and conflicting and non-conflicting segments. So if you put the grid representation of the same segmentation, this is the grid representation. In this grid representation, you can clearly see these are the different segments, that is the packet spaces. And rule number 1 says allow, rule number 2 says deny in all these packet spaces. But if you observe here, in segment 3, there is a conflict because one action is allow and then in the same packet space, another action is denied. So when these kind of conflicts are there, it is an issue. So it has to be addressed. So appropriate action has to be taken. So two actions are there, allow and deny. Which action has to be applied? This is the question. Whether the administrator has to allow a packet space, any packet, incoming or outgoing packet that is falling in this segment, whether it has to be allowed or denied. So that action, that conflict has to be resolved. So you need to take certain actions. So using action constraint generation. So in the research, there is some suggestions. So if you feel that there is a high security risk, you deny instead of allowing. Or if you feel that there is no security risk, you can allow. Or you can have different other strategies like recency override, specificity override, high majority override, first match override, high authority override. Based on this, we need to take a decision. See, there should not be two conflicting actions. Allow, deny, both cannot be there at a time. You should either allow or you should either deny. That action has to be taken by the administrator. So in taking this decision, so there is some value called as risk value. Risk value is calculated and a risk level is calculated based on the resource risk values of the conflicting segments. Suppose I have a certain destination, a FTP server. So my FTP server is the conflicting segment, and using a common vulnerability scoring system, we find out how much critical it is. So this risk level will tell the criticality of the risk, whether is it okay, some small amount of risk can be taken, or no, it is very important because it is an FTP server or any servers that are protected within the DMZ zone, they are very high risk. So therefore, those risk values are very high. So if you have any doubt that whether a packet has to be allowed or denied, better deny it so that you will protect your resources. So there a risk value is calculated based on common vulnerability scoring system. And if the risk level is within the lower limit, then you can allow it. And if the risk level is very high, you can deny it. So based on these risk levels, the final actions will be generated. But this is a normal formula. But we can use, anti-colony optimization to actually optimize this. So these action constraints are generated. So earlier action constraints are generated. How these action constraints, how the anomalies will be avoided? See, these rules must be reordered. These rules must be reordered. If the rules has to be reordered, there are multiple permutations and combinations in different ways. We can reorder the rules so that the action constraints are properly generated. Action constraints, I will show you the action constraints, then you will understand. Yeah. So if you see here, these are the action constraints. See, in rule number 3, there is a conflict. So the action strategy that is applied based on the risk level is allowed, because the risk level is low in all the resources that are in this segment, all the IP addresses, that is the systems with the IP addresses that fall under segment 3, the risk level is very minimum and it is under the limit. So it is allow override. Similarly, in the segment 6, it is allowed. Segment 7, it is allowed. So what do you mean by these action constraints? There is a conflict in segment 3. There is a conflict in segment 6. There is a conflict in segment 7. That means 2 actions are there, allow, deny, allow, deny. Finally, I need to conclude an action. The action that I have concluded using the risk value formula is allow. In segment 6, it is allow. Segment 7, it is allow. In segment 10, it is denied. In segment 11, allow. And in segment 12, it is recency with first match override rule is applied. So, and in recency with first match override, the most recent rule, see earlier, one rule says allow, but after that another rule says deny. Which is the most recent one? Deny is the recent one. So deny will be applied. Okay. So in this 3, it is allow, 6 allow, 7 allow, 10 deny, 11 allow, 12 deny. It follows recency with first match. 15 allow, 16 deny. So 16 deny, recency with first match over. These are the action constraints that has to be generated. If this is my action constraint for all the segments, then my rules are anomaly free. You understood? So which order will generate these rules? Rules has to be reordered to allow to eliminate these anomalies. That is the only solution. Reordering of rules is the solution for removing these anomalies. So whenever we say ordering, in how many different orders you can arrange these rules? See, there are multiple combinations. So different approaches are there to reorder this. Manually reordering is very tedious. Therefore, there is greedy and permutation based approaches can be used. But there are some limitations for this in the existing approaches. So there is a security policy, whether your security policy is confirmed or not. So what is the security policy? See, we are talking about rules from security policy. These rules came from security policy, right? See, there will not be any conflicts in security policy. Policy will be very clear. When I say certain IP must be denied, it must be denied. But due to mistakes, you have either allowed it instead of denying it. So you must, even though you have resolved the, after reordering, you might have resolved the conflict. Just by resolving the conflicts, it is not enough. You must again cross-check that the policy that is intended by the management did not change. So that cross-checking has not happened earlier. So we have made a point that the cross-checking has happened, and the after reordering the rules, the firewall must comply with the policy. That is the challenge. That is the challenge. So here, you see here. So we have introduced a concept called trust factor. So we have introduced a concept called trust factor. So using this trust factor, we have established, we have modified the formula for risk value calculation. Earlier, there was no risk value for trust factor involved in the risk value calculation. If you see here risk values, risk levels are calculated only on the conflicting segments, only based on common vulnerability scoring system. So there is no point of trust here, but we have introduced a new concept called trust. So from the sources which you trust most, you can give highest points, and if the sources are blacklisted and if you don't trust, you give the least point. So by involving a trust factor, you can avoid availability loss. See, even though you eliminate the anomaly, but if while eliminating the anomaly, if you deny a packet which is supposed to be allowed, I told you that if you deny a packet which is supposed to be allowed, there is a availability loss. So there should not be availability loss. So availability loss must be 0, and at the same time security risk must be reduced. So keeping all these in mind, we came up with a new modified risk value calculation, which includes a trust factor. So using this trust factor, a trust factor will be given a value between 0 to 1. 1 is the highly trusted and 0 is the most untrusted. So with this formula, with the newly applied modified risk level formula, so action constraints are generated. So this is the trust factor. For example, for some sources I trust to 90%. For some sources I trust to 60%. For some sources I trust only 10%, and some sources I do not trust at all. So, and these are the risk values that are regenerated, recalculated. These are the risk values. So with these risk values, once again, the action constraints are generated. If you see here, what is the advantage of the modified trust factor? You see here, earlier there is a conflict in R4. There is a conflict in segment S1 and S2, and the packet is denied. With the action constraint generation is denied, but actually they are trusted sources. So there is a availability loss. But in the modified one, because of introduction of the trust factor, the packet is allowed because there is a trust factor. Hence, there is no availability loss in the conflicting segment S2. So these are the advantages of the system by involving a trust factor, and these are the action constraints that are generated. Modified action constraints that has to be generated. Now I need to reorder to satisfy this action constraint. For that, we take the help of ant colony optimization. So ant colony optimization is an is a optimization technique which is inspired, or is also called as a swarm intelligence, which is inspired by the natural behavior of ants. So wherever we need to solve a combinatorial optimization problem, wherever we need to pick a best solution among multiple available solutions, we can use ant colony optimization to pick up a solution in a finite amount of time in a faster, to get the solution faster than checking all the possible combinations. So if you use these optimization techniques, please remember when to use these swarm intelligence or optimization techniques. You have to use optimization techniques when you need to find a best solution among multiple possible almost infinite number of solutions. You cannot test each and every solution one by one, but if you use optimization techniques, we randomly select some solutions and check them, and if they are fit, we select the best solution among them. So that is the advantage of these optimization techniques. One such optimization technique is ant-colony optimization. This optimization is inspired from natural ant behavior. You see ants generally travel like this, but they release a substance called pheromone. The pheromone trail that is given by an ant is followed by the next ant. So after some time, everybody follow in the same line and find the shortest path to the food. See, initially they are searching here and there, but some of the ants will find the food source. So if the food source is near, more ants will tend towards the food source. And if the pheromone is here, the ant which goes to the longer distance, the pheromone expires, the pheromone evaporates. And if the food source is very near, the pheromone concentration is more. Each ant will leave the pheromone. So the ant that is following the previous ant will travel based on its own knowledge and also based on pheromone. See, even though every ant leaves some pheromone, initially you see all the ants do not travel in the same line because everybody has to search their own solution. Understood? So if you simply follow the previous ant's pheromone, sometimes you may never find the food. You simply go, without any purpose, you simply go behind an ant. That's not correct, right? You should apply, the ant will apply its own intelligence. At the same time, it also takes help of the pheromone. After some time, when most of the ants will start towards the solution, at that time, the pheromone concentration keeps increasing, and finally it will find the shortest path. So what did you understand from this? See, ants will find the solution based on two things. One is the pheromone substance, pheromone levels. The pheromone level is based on previous ant, right? And another one is its own solution. It also has to find a solution and also take the help of the pheromone. Then only the search will become accelerated. Search can be, or the solution can be found in a faster pace, or you can say that convergence, the solution will be converged quicker when ant colony optimization is used. So if these are the see, whenever we say optimization techniques, there are a group of ants. You can see here, not a single ant. There are a group of ants. Every ant will start from the source, go towards the destination, and again come back. So there will be multiple iterations actually. In one iteration, it is not done. Every ant has to start from the nest, go towards the food, and it has to come back. And this will be repeated multiple number of times. That means, let us say there are 5 ants. These 5 ants will find a solution, and 5 ants will come back, and again they start to find the solution again. So this happens in iterations. That means in each iteration there are multiple ants. Each ant will find a solution. If in the second iteration, if the solution is better than the first iteration, then the solution is replaced. If first iteration itself is the best solution, then that will be retained. Understood? So like that, every optimization technique will have multiple iterations, and each iteration multiple solutions are found. So generally, this is when we talk about ant colony optimization, there are two things, pheromone and heuristic. Eta is the heuristic factor and tau is the pheromone factor, and how you control whether you purely depend on the previous ant, that is on the pheromone, you can give beta as 1. If you purely depend on ant's own algorithm, then you can give alpha as 1. Or if you want to balance, you give 0.5, 0.5, equal importance to both heuristic and pheromone value. So this is the probability function for ant choosing the next path. So this ultimately our problem domain can be converted to a ant colony optimization problem. So these are the different nodes, and there is a graph. So ultimately you need to find the shortest path, that is in normal traveling salesman problem kind of solution. But here our solution is different. We need to find the best order, the best rule. So ant will travel all the rules and find a path. So that is here rules are nothing but rules. Each one is a rule. I need to find a order. That means I need to travel all the rules. And how I can travel all the rules in different forms, right? Each ant will travel all the rules in different paths. Each ant must visit one rule at a time, and that becomes an order of the rules. So for example, this is R1. It can be R1, R3, let us say this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 unfolding. It can be R1, R4, R5, R2, something like that. And another ant will start from R2. It goes to R4, R3, R2. So like that, it can see each ant can have its own path. Now whichever is best. So every ant will find one order of the rule. And what do we want with respect to firewall optimization concept? With respect to firewall, we want an order which has a least conflict resolving score. Highest number of conflicts must be resolved. More number of conflicts must be resolved. Highest conflict resolving score. For example, this conflict resolving score depends on the action constraints. Earlier we have discussed about the formula that is given. The rule. This is one formula that is used to find the risk values, and again there is one more formula to find the conflict resolving score. So this is the conflict resolving score. This is set of how many segments are satisfied. See, I told you that we have generated action constraints. So if I have an order of a rule, that order of the rule must satisfy this action constraint. If this action constraint is satisfied, then there is no conflict. How many rules will satisfy this action constraint? There is a conflict resolving score. See, for example, you see here. This is the action constraint generated by algorithm 2. That is our updated algorithm. But this is the action in the first vertical appearing block in the segments of the table. See, for example, look here. If you understand this, then you have understood everything. See, this is one order, right? What is the first action? Segment 1 is allowed. Here first action is allowed. Here first action is allowed. You can see here first action is allowed. Here first action is allowed. Here in segment 7 the first action is denied. So if you write all the first actions against the action constraint, then you will get the conflict resolving score. You see here. So let us say this is the action constraint and this is the first action. So if both are same, then it is satisfied. If both are same, then it is satisfied. If both are different, then it is not satisfied. that means there is a conflict in my order. So totally, how many segments have satisfied and how many segments are not satisfied? 14 segments are satisfied. Therefore, the conflict resolving score is 14. If you understood this, you understood everything. Okay, but you may say that, sir, if I generate one more order, my conflict resolving score may go to 12. If I generate one more order, my conflict resolving score may go to 10. Yes, definitely. If I generate one more order, what is the maximum conflict resolving score? 18. If I get 18, that is the maximum. That means there are no conflicts. So we will try until we get 18, whichever until we get 18. But how many times we will try? Of course, in all optimization techniques, there will be some finite amount of steps, or the best solution is reached. If we reach 18, we stop. You need not order again. So there are no conflicts. So you reorder the rules so that there are no conflicts. So this is the concept of rule reordering. So by applying this ant colony optimization algorithm, so this is the algorithm. If you apply this algorithm, each ant will go and find a rule. That rule will be again checked according to the constraints, action constraints, and a conflict resolving score is found. And every solution will find its own conflict resolving score. And whichever gets the highest conflict resolving score, that order will be finalized. And finally, we generate a firewall rules where there are no conflicts, even though the administrator has done some mistakes. So while reordering the rules according to the policy, according to the action constraints, without any anomalies, the rules are reordered. So this is the solution of the problem. So how can you check whether your solution is correct? See how many, I can count how many shadows are there, how many generalizations are there, how many correlations are there, how many redundant rules are there. And finally, if you look at this is the order. This is the order. Rule number 11 comes first. 6, 5, 3. This is the rule. In this order, I do not have any constraint. I do not have any anomalies. I do not have any conflicts. So all are satisfying the action constraints. Then this is the best order rule that is generated by my ant colony optimization. So now with this, what is the advantage you see here? The availability loss is 0. This is what we want. Okay, availability loss is 0, and more number of conflicts are resolved. More number of conflicts are resolved. Actually, in the policy number 5, there are 164 conflicts. So among 164 conflicts, in existing techniques, which we have tested already, existing literature, they are able to solve only 152. But with the modified 163 rules, 163 conflicts are resolved. This is what is the beauty of research. We have improved the number of conflict resolving, and we have at the same time we have made availability loss as 0. So this is the benefit of this research. So more number of percentage, how many conflicts are resolved? Almost 100%. 100%. All conflicts are resolved only when there is a huge set of rules in set number 5. 164 conflicts are there. Among them, 152 are resolved, which is almost nearly 100%. So this is the security risk of the FAME. Security risk. Security. So this is the number of redundant rules. You can see redundant rules 2, 4, 6, 30. For example, if you take in set number 5, there are 49 redundant rules. All 49 redundant rules are eliminated. All 49 redundant rules are successfully eliminated. So you see here, this is the availability loss. So the different graphs of whatever I have Then, and we also implemented adaptive rule reordering. It's a rule reordering. If I add a new rule, do we need to run entire algorithm again? No, not required. By using a small adaptive algorithm in a split second, in just as fast as 0.007 of a second, we can easily calculate, recalculate, reorder the rules. So that is the benefit of this algorithm. Earlier, if you calculate again, if you add a new rule, and if you want to run the entire algorithm, it used to take 1,853 seconds. But by using an adaptive algorithm, it was calculated in just 0.007 seconds. So this is the one application. So so what we have done here, I will just conclude what I have discussed till now. So I have discussed about what are the different types of anomalies in network security, particularly when we are using firewall rules, packet filter firewall rules. When human manually, when the admins write some firewall rules, there may be some conflicts. Because of these conflicts, there are the worst conditions that happen is there is high security risk or there is an availability loss. So where the packets which are supposed to be allowed are denied, or the packets which are supposed to be denied are allowed. These two are very dangerous. So to avoid this, there are some solutions. Some solutions are to identify the anomalies, and to reorder the rules. So reordering of the rules is a combinatorial optimization problem. Therefore, we have used a ant-colony optimization for this, and we have reordered the rules, and we have achieved best results. So this is the topic for today. I hope you have got something out of it. I am sure that you understood the beauty of research, and at least you understood what are the problems that may rise in firewalls in cybersecurity due to human mistakes, how catastrophic, what damage it can be, what damage is occurred, and how research or the algorithms that we design can be used to avoid. So with this, I conclude and close the session. Or do you have any questions before closing the session?
Any questions from audience? Unmuting all the people. Really, it's a fantastic job, sir. Congratulate.
I'm sorry for some technical problem. My there is a mic problem with my system. Later, sir has sent me a different mic, and I think there was some disturbance in between for some time.
I can understand. Really, it's worth watching again, hearing your talk. We know it's a need of our required to understand the security threats and all this stuff. Really, sir, these algorithms and all, it's required basics. If we miss, definitely we are not able to do anything of this. I think this talk it's very informative, and all people are enjoyed with it. I will ask them to share any issues or any queries with me, and I will direct to you. And really, it's a thanks for your patience, and your taking your time. And I know you are too busy with your activities. Still, for IEEE sake, you given me your time. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks for your support and all. And we are
So on
the
this
same.
This occasion, I would like to thank, or I would like to appreciate Satish sir. Actually, he has been very active. I can really tell that among all our team, most active person is sir. Even though we are busy with our regular task, and he's still sparing some time beyond his regular, beyond his class hours. Being volunteering in IEEE is not an easy task. You need to spare a lot of personal time. So he has conducted many events this year, sir. How many events, sir, this year? Till
Total
now?
30, sir. Total 30, sir. With these events, 30, 32,
30.
32, yeah.
30.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Wow, great. So it's, you can imagine, see how difficult it is to conduct a single event. But sir has conducted 30 events. We have contributed only in 2 or 3 events. Most of them he has done single-handedly, and some of maybe some of the volunteers have helped to some extent, but majority he has done. So really appreciate, sir, because it is beneficial for all the participants. So you are doing a lot of service to the community.
Sir, we are making a small domain group, sir. I will also add you for certain
Yeah.
groups. There is security, all this stuff. I will add to you in that group so that you can
Yes, sir.
give your own opinions. And now we are making very good networks among the chapters also. So that is also one idea we roll this day itself. So I will share everything in
Yes, sir.
coming meeting, sir. Thanks for your time and your talk. Really I thank
Yes, sir.
participants for listening. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you, sir.